call this CRA meeting to order. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is the invocation and which is going to be just a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Charlie, I had a hard time buttoning my jacket.
Roll call, please.
Charlie, I had a hard time buttoning my jacket.
Well, I suggest you exercise.
Carlson?
Here.
Hurtak?
Here.
Clendenin?
Here.
Maniscalco?
Here.
Vieira? Miranda?
Here.
Henderson?
Present.
We have physical quorum.
Okay, thank you. And I will call up our interim director, Mr. Cedric McRae, to clean up our agenda today. And
Can I say that I will adopt the minutes of the July 25th
oh yes,
CRA meeting?
I just thank you. We have a motion to adopt the minutes from last meeting, second by Maniscalco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. And cleaning up this one before we get started. Good morning, Mr. McRae. Go ahead.
Good morning. For the record, Cedric McRae, interim CRA director. Currently, the changes that we have to the agenda, we're requesting that item number 4 be continued to December 12th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then also number 5, related to a motion from Councilman Vieira related to the Glazers Children's Museum. I just wanted to inform you all that the grant process that you all approved recently, they've been contacted and we're asking them to follow that grants process. So we will, formally be bringing that back to you at a later date and time.
Motion received and filed.
Second.
Okay, motion received and filed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yes. And
Excuse me.
yes, ma'am.
Board Member Carlson.
Just on the Children's Museum, I support the Children's Museum. That for some reason, all these organizations say, well, you gave one X amount, so we should be able to get the same amount. I think whatever we give people going forward, because now the big dollars aren't out there anymore, whatever we give people going forward needs to be, make sure that we're performance-based and not just handing out big chunks of money.
Correct, and that will be listed out in the funding agreement.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Attorney Massey wanted to speak to that or not.
Yeah, I mean, you all have approved, and we've entered into agreements for large gifts for cultural institutions in downtown primarily. We've also done one for the Florida Aquarium, which we need to bring back in the form of an agreement. All these agreements do basically require that they do certain things before the money in the CRA is given. Our money is really the last money in for capital projects primarily. So we'd have to understand, and this is part of the process, what the Children's Museum is asking us to do. That would ultimately come to you all for a decision whether that you felt that that was worthy of the CRA support. There's nothing that mandates that we support any project. So again, that would be something for the board.
But without getting into all the details of it, the decisions we made on the others were made at a certain point in time, at a certain point in the economy, certain conditions of things going on. And my only point is that somebody should not just say, oh, well, that you gave X amount to this organization, so we need the same amount, and here's what we're going to do for that. Instead, it should be, here's what we're trying to do, and can you fund part of it? Right? So it's not that we're going to, that every cultural institution deserves or is entitled to the same amount of money.
No, and I think the staff will probably work with them on it. I think everyone's aware, or that they are not, especially the downtown CRA budget is constrained for the next several years based on the commitments that this board has already made. So there is not the same amount of funds available, and so that will be part of the staff discussion, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Massey. Okay, let's continue. Anything else on the agenda?
No.
Okay, motion to adopt the agenda as
Move.
6, though.
item 6 is
We just want to accept that?
item 6 is motion to receive and file.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor, the agenda, sorry. Thank you, agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's get started with our public comment. Can you outline some statements? I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. Relative to public comment, members of the public are allowed a reasonable opportunity at the beginning of the CRA meeting to address any item on the agenda before the CRA takes official action on any such item. However, a 3-minute time limit applies to all speakers providing public comment unless that time frame is modified by a vote of the CRA board. Speakers and members of the public are also reminded that they are to refrain from disruptive behavior, including making vulgar or threatening remarks or making or causing disruptive noises or sounds or displaying signs or graphics. Speakers are also reminded to refrain from launching personal attacks. The chair will rule out of order any person who speaks without being recognized or attempts to address the CRA from outside the speaker area at the podium. Persons failing to comply with the CRA rules may also be ruled out of order, and at the discretion of the chair may be removed from the chambers for the remainder of that day's meeting. Finally, the CRA board members are reminded that they should refrain from engaging a speaker under public comment, and also a reminder that we are subject to the same, primarily without the same rules that are in effect for the city council that were revised on June 6th.
Thank you. Okay, good morning.
Anyone wishing to make public comment can approach the podium at this point in time.
Good morning.
Good morning. Connie Burton, just like the rules for the public comments are laid out, I would like to suggest to you all that you all read the mission of a CRA. I heard one of the councilwomen mention it last week that the CRA mission was to reduce poverty, disease, provide affordable housing, and it was one more, crime, disease, public housing, and reduce blight. How streetcars get into your agenda unless it becomes pet projects of individuals. When we have these ongoing issues in our community that are not being addressed, and you represent the CRA mission, allegedly. So one thing, in talking about, which is, I'm gonna listen to the report, but when you're talking about Central Park Village, always mention the heroic work of Sister Esme Reed. That it's not enough just to have her name etched on a building, but the work of Esme Reed, someone that was able to garnish over 10,000 votes, a woman that had no education. 10,000 black folks in this city thought she would be the best representative for black people in the city of Tampa based off of her work, of fighting for the poor, of fighting for better housing, fighting for child care initiative, fighting for economics and jobs for our people. We miss the work and the voice of an SMA Reed. And so when we see all of these things that's outlined on this agenda and we say, how do it meet the mission of the CRA, I think consciously you've made it work the way you want it to work. Because we still have blight, we still have no affordable housing in our community. I also would like to call attention to an address in our community, 1402 East Emma, right in the middle of East Tampa, CRA. And I know you're going to hear a report this morning of the upcoming Palafox project, but at 1402 East Emma, a house is selling for $745,000. Emma. You need a down payment assistance of $149,000, and I can guarantee you that working class people in our community cannot get those houses and lots that we have talked about in the past that we would like to see promoted toward affordable housing. You're not doing that. You jump from affordable housing for the poor, where we have seniors paying well over 80% of their monthly income just to live. Read the mission of a CRA moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Next speaker. Okay, next speaker, or we will close public comment. Good morning.
My name is Pastor William,
Good morning.
located at 1112 East Scott Street, Paradise Missionary Baptist Church. I'm gonna read something I gave it to the council, but they don't seem to don't do nothing about it. We the citizens of the United States of America, black people, brown people, poor people, and children get no respect. Justice in the United States of America. There is so-called racist white people, atheists, Ku Klux Klan, skinhead, Nazis, white supremacists, and devils himself, hate God people. The city officials of Tampa are unjust, biased, racist, liars, thieves, and include the mayor, city council, code enforcement, and everybody else. Nobody wants to seem to do nothing for people of color. When y'all make these rules and regulations and laws and everything, they're not for color people. They basically for white folks only. Now, I sold my church here, 1112 East Scott Street. I sold it to a guy, and he's a Spanish dude, and I didn't know that he was a thief. He's a Jamaican, and he accused me of doing things that he's been doing, breaking out my glasses in church and everything, just putting citation on my doors and all that stuff. And I don't want to know who gives him the authority to do that. But they look at his skin and they say it's okay. And they look at my skin and they say, well, it's okay too. So, but the thing about it, we try to judge people according to the color of their skin, not according to their character and their tradition or nothing like that. We just want to do what y'all been doing for a long time. And you're going to keep doing it. You're not going to stop. You know, ain't got a handful of black folks here to represent black folks no more. Why? Because they know you ain't going to do a damn thing. They know that. And so, but I'm trying to do all I can, and I come down here on a wheelchair, and nobody won't do nothing for me to help me out. And I'm an old man, and old and crippled and everything else. And nobody still don't want to help. I told them my water was off over down to 3906. You think they sent somebody over there to check it out? No, they don't give a damn. If it's off, it ought to be off. That's the way I see them saying. And they could care less. I need a new roof on my house. And you think they sent, well, a woman came over there and she said, this is a frame house. We can't put no roof on a frame house because it don't have no value to it.
Thank
Let me
you,
get
Pastor
out of here.
Williams.
Boy, why don't y'all reply to my credentials, please, in the name of Jesus? I like to go through these.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this on? I'll address that later. Good morning. My name is Kiva McCaskill, and I'm here just to talk through some of the things. I didn't realize it was CRA today. I thought it was City Council, but I'm here. So I'll come to that. So I wanted to address some of the concerns working in this space here in East Tampa as I begin to look at the history of how African-American people has been treated in a marginalized community. I'm just reminded of what happened over in Tampa Park, where CRA was in operation, you had administration and all of that. An African-American woman spearheaded Tampa Park. Her father built those properties over 60 years ago for marginalized communities for African-American people. And somehow she lost the funding, whatever was necessary. But I didn't see the same embrace, how you rushed to help Darryl Shaw, and I love him, no pun intended at all. But I saw a different type of energy to support Shaw that I didn't see from City Council. Many of you were not here, so I'm not saying it's your fault, but I'm just looking at what's happened. Also look at Madam Fortune Taylor. What's left of her 33 acres that she at one time owned somehow landed in the hands of the mayor, and then we have nothing left of her except a bridge, and somebody had to beg you to put her name on it. I'm seeing there's a disparity in terms of treatment in our community. From August 8th, 2022, you approved a pre-development program that I asked my consultant to write for the city of Tampa. We don't work for you, but we're trying to do what's best in the city. And so finally, June 2024, the program is approved. The program is approved with a whole lot of red tape and scrutiny, as if the developers, the treatment that I'm seeing happen to the developers that's coming forth for these programs, and the treatment I see related and some of the other developers in the city get, it's not the same. I'm just asking you, as these programs go forward, I'm thankful for Dee back here, who has a team that can probably put it together, but some of the process that I've seen for these developers that I brought to the table, because I know you're not gonna look at me, so I went and found people that can represent these transactions. And the treatment and the process is so basic, it's so elementary, it's downright disrespectful. What's being asked of developers and contractors who build $500 and $800 million buildings, come to do me a favor in East Tampa, and they have to come to a pre-application meeting with some basic questions, and they're giving recommendations from people who don't have the same credentials. It's offensive, it's embarrassing. So I'm asking you, city council members, to pay attention and be amenable to some changes as they may come forward. Because what's happening in East Tampa with development and what happens in other areas with development is disrespectful. I'll be sending you some information on that, and I'll also share some information in terms of trying to build a community in terms of people. You don't just start with the buildings, we're trying to build people and build collaborative efforts and all of that. And many of you seem not to know who the good actors are. You're very familiar with the bad actors. And some of that is building the people and cleaning up the bad actors. So I'll be sending some information to you as you see we move forward to collaboration and cleaning up these bad actors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mentesnot, Tampa, Florida. I want to say huru. Huru means freedom in Swahili. And we as African people should always be thinking about our freedom. We're only going to get back to freedom, self-determination, black independence through a certain kind of organization and a certain kind of willpower. And that do not consist of begging. That do not consist of begging. That is not in the tradition of Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Maurice Bishop. We can throw Harriet Tubman, Fred Hampton, Huey Newton, Mark Clark, the Black Panther Party. That's not in that tradition at all. It's not in the tradition of begging colonialists, begging capitalists, begging imperialists, begging a white ruling class to do something for us. We're at 26% of this Tampa population. We deserve 26% of this budget. It never happens. It has never happened since the city formation in 1855. They have all kind of clowns they say for District 5. And that's what it is, it's clowns, nothing more, nothing less. And they have a way of deceiving African people. You know, one of the world's biggest international trick, they say Hitler murdered 6 million Jews. Wasn't 6 million Jews in Europe. In the whole of Europe, it wasn't 6 million Jews. It might have been 30, 40,000 of them that got injured. And the people who got injured, they don't say anything about them, but that's how strong the Jewish propaganda is. That's how strong the Jewish lobby is. They gloating because they put Jamal Bowman out of office. They gloating because of Sheila Jackson. They gloating because of Cori Bush. How much money they spending on local races. And they have African people as confused as ever. African people are so confused that we can't see how strong slavery and oppression is, that you see African people, hundreds of Africans, hundreds of enslaved Africans go over to France to represent the United States and other places in the Olympics, jumping in bars like monkeys, running their hearts out, doing different things, shooting basketball and hoops like monkeys. And they send Flavor Flav and a basketball player to represent the interests of African people. That's how far we are removed from reality. but I want to say African people aren't going to go down begging. We're going to go down fighting. We're going to go down Nat Turner style. It's no more begging. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 1, Central Park CAC.
Good morning, Courtney
morning.
Horsey, Redevelopment Manager over Central Park, and we have Thomas Murphy, the Chair of Central Park CAC, here to provide updates of what the activities have been of recent. Thomas Murphy?
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Thomas Murphy, I'm the chair for the Central Park CAC, here to give you a little update on how things are going down in Central Park. One of the most exciting things that we've been working towards is getting our meetings held down in the district. We've actually been holding them downtown, which can always be a little challenging for parking, especially for some of our residents who might not have public transportation. So we are going to be hosting our meetings down in the Encore District in the Reed Building. So I think that'll be a lot easier for a lot of our residents to be able to come down and voice some of their concerns and whatnot. Also, the community engagement will be increased by hosting it down there, and some of the new developments that we talk about will be able to see there firsthand for some of our members who might not be able to be down there on a regular basis. The community redevelopment plan, that's been a big accomplishment as well. Initially, that strategic plan had been drafted in 2006. It's a far cry down from where our community is now in 2024. So a lot of the ideas that we had got turned down because they weren't in that plan. So we've been working with Professor Trent Green, who's done an amazing, amazing job with his students to draft a lot of the maps and whatnot. This kind of shows you our boundaries here for some of the things that we're going to be having in the future. So they have done, I mean, far surpassed anything that I could have ever imagined. So that's going to be really exciting as well. Then one thing that we had talked about is the increased walkability now with a lot of the gasworks development. We've always talked about Central Park kind of being the donut hole, you know, people locating it being north of or west of Ybor, south of Tampa Heights. I think having the walkability for that is going to be amazing for a lot of our community as well to participate in things at the green space like Perry Harvey Park and whatnot. Meacham Farm as well. Hosting a lot of their community events, and they're always wanting to work with the school board to get some field trips and whatnot down there as well. So a lot of really, really good things that we've been working really hard for over the past few years are kind of coming to fruition now, so it's exciting. Lot 12, so the Patel lot, I think that you were familiar with them coming in and chatting a little bit about putting in a medical office down there. They had done some of their own private research down there, so we're looking forward to seeing that, and the boutique grocer being put down in the actual Encore area of Central Park, the CAC. Another really exciting thing is the wayfinding signage, again, to show exactly where you are. When you're walking through downtown, maybe going through Ybor into the gasworks area, you'll be able to identify that you are in Central Park by specific signage now, so that's really exciting. And then another thing is the vandalism that was done to the public art down in the district has all been fixed now. The artist had actually come in, and I went down there, saw him working on that, you know, tirelessly, and they have some plate glass that is over that now, so hopefully we can prevent anything like that from happening in the future. But it's great to have that back now, and it looks amazing. So, yeah, any questions that y'all have for me?
Board Member Hurte.
Thank you. Thank you for your update.
Yeah.
Always appreciate when you come down. So you talked about the plan. When do you think that plan will be finished, or a draft finished?
I think they're coming in September 12th, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Okay, so to us on September 12th,
Correct.
or, okay, wonderful.
There's a draft plan, I
Yeah.
need to review it, but yes,
Yeah.
it's ready for presentation to you all, the processing.
Wonderful. Well, I really look forward to reading that, and I hope you come back on September 12th, you or other members of your CAC to share. It's definitely time. Y'all have, you probably are the one CAC or the one CRA district that has so drastically changed. So I agree, your plan needs to be rewritten, and I'm very excited to see what you all have come up with.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you for your report. Okay. Mr. McCray.
Good morning again, Cedric McCray, interim CRA director. As it relates to the director's report, and I know during some of the briefings, we were slated to have conversations, and I was gonna ask that number 7 be discussed under the director's report as it relates to the 2 positions that were discussed a couple of weeks ago during the July 25th meeting.
We have a motion by Maniscalco, second by Board Member Hurtak. All those in favor? Okay, sure.
Okay. So, as I've been in the role now for exactly 2 weeks, and wanted to just kind of highlight or bring up, because I know that CRA Board Member Hurtak asked the question as it relates to the 2 positions, and I have had an opportunity to review the job descriptions and postings, and it's my understanding that it was paused or frozen when we went through the changes with some of the leadership in our department leaving. I believe the positions are needed. I know that we will have to make a decision at some point in the future as it relates to who the incoming director or new director will be officially, as I'm serving in an interim capacity. So I'm under the understanding and viewpoint that we may need to just wait until that is determined to allow that individual to select who will be filling those roles, but we will yield to whatever the pleasure of the CRA board is, and if we need to have further discussion, ask HR to come in to report out on that and what that process will look like moving forward.
We'll continue your report and then we'll take questions.
I'm
That's
done.
it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. My concern about this is that these positions were up, and this has nothing to do with you, I'm just saying, these positions were up and they were halted when Miss Moody put in her notice. But I'm not sure who had the authority to do that. To me, the only people who had the authority to do that were us. The board is the one that makes the decisions. We contract with HR to do the work, but I'm not sure how they have the authority to stop something that the CRA board wants. And so that's my big concern and why I believe that this should go forward in that finding, because these are not, this is a communications and community engagement person. This isn't necessarily someone who's has to fit a mold. So for me personally, I would like both of these to be opened again and for the process to begin. If HR is concerned that it wouldn't be the right person, then maybe we should make that decision. We can be a part of the hiring decision along with yourself. But quite frankly, I don't understand how the HR had any authority to stop this, because no one, it's us. And I looked at the org chart again today. You report to us. You don't report to anybody in the city. Right. So I'm very disappointed and concerned about that.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, and Cedric, I want to thank you for, as I've said to you before, thank you for taking this position. As HR has written in the job description, it's work of unusual difficulty. And so I think we have to look at that later. But thank you for stepping up. The challenge, the ongoing, I agree with my colleague, is why I'm speaking. The challenge we have is that the CRE really is a separate entity. We choose to outsource to the city. We don't have to outsource to the city. We have to follow the city, before Morris says something, we have to follow the city's legal guidelines and purchasing guidelines and HR guidelines, but we don't have to outsource to the city. But what's happened is, and if you look at how we negotiated the quote-unquote new agreement, outsource agreement 5 years ago, it clearly says the executive director reports to the CRA. With HR, with the HR dotted line to the mayor and the administration. But what's happened in practice is the administration has put their heavy thumb on some of these things, and we have not been able to participate. If this was a separate board, if it was the Board of United Way or CDC or something like that, it would be very participatory. The HR person would never put out a job description without our input. I agree with my colleague that these positions should go forward, but I've never seen the job descriptions for them, and I would like to see them. Also, I have concerns of the arts position, which I've been talking to the administration about, and I'll talk about later. But an example of the arts position, it was agreed that that would be a CRA position, and the next we knew it was advertised as a city position. And then last meeting, I was blindsided by finding out that somebody had been hired. We had never seen the job description or any resumes. The person was hired, and the person's working for the city. And so we need to make sure that we that in the weighting of how these things are happening, yes, we're outsourcing to the city, and the city is managing it. But they need to follow the direction of the CRA board. And if you treated this as a separate entity, we all would have some input to it. Think about it like the county commission too. The county commission has input. The last thing I'll say is there have been I had long discussions with your predecessor and Nicole and Elise about marketing and PR. That's the industry I'm in. I work with a lot of government agencies outside the Tampa Bay area. The issue is that in my professional opinion, it's better for us to hire a senior level marketing communication person and then a graphic designer. With that, we can save huge amounts of money. Again, the administration put their thumb on it and told the staff that it had to be a $500,000 outsourced agreement to a marketing agency. And that $500,000 would make it one of the biggest clients in the region. I think it's an extraordinary amount of money. For $200,000, we could hire 2 people who could do all the things we want, work with our community. If we need to outsource some smaller things, we could. But I think looking at, again, following the directives of the CRA board and not the administration, we need to get some of these positions back on track. The community relations position, the marketing positions. I think we need to stop the RFP for the outsourced marketing agency. It's an extraordinary amount of money to spend that could be spent on something else. And then we need to come back to the job description for yours. I don't think it will attract people if we say that it's work of unusual difficulty. The only reason it's difficult is because the administration puts their heavy imprint on it, which they're not supposed to do per the contract. Thank you.
Any other comments? Board Member Clendenin.
When you, just a second, I did want to.
Attorney Massey.
Just say a couple of things in response. I mean, yes, the board has to approve the selection of the CRA director. The way that the staff hiring has been handled is that the CRA director then interviews those candidates and makes the decision, basically. These positions will report to the CRA director. I think that, and I don't know this for a fact, but I am assuming since Ms. Moody was leaving and there was no CRA director, that's why those things were put on hold, because there was no director to make that selection process. I don't think it was intentional to get involved in the process. It just, there wasn't someone in that position. And so I think that's kind of what Mr. McCray is saying. When we have a permanent director, then it makes sense for that person to interview for those folks and then present them to you all. I mean, obviously, if the board wants to go ahead and hire on its own accord without the director being involved in that, a permanent director being involved in that process, you certainly can make that decision. But I think that's kind of how things have worked. So
Thank you. Board Member Clendenin.
Did you want a question?
I just wanted to respond.
Wait a minute,
I'll defer to her.
You'll defer? Okay.
I just want to say that Miss Moody herself told me that that had been stopped and she didn't want it stopped. And that's the issue for me.
Okay.
Thank you. Now would you like to go?
Yes.
Okay.
I just knew it was a response to
No, go ahead,
what
Board
Marissa
Member Clendenin.
It was something Councilman Carlson said. Councilman Carlson, could you explain what's going on with this $500,000, this PR contract, and fill me in, because I'm at a blank.
You know, Cedric can tell you the update on it, but and again, I really appreciate you stepping into this role. I know how difficult it is. If you go all the way back, the public, we have people come in the public, they want to know, what are you doing in our community? And folks in East Tampa come every week and say, you're not doing anything. We are doing things, but nobody knows it because we're not doing enough, but we're doing things, but people don't know it because we're not communicating. Or if it goes through the regular communication process of the city, it comes out with some other label or name on it. It's not branded well for CRA. And so then we also have the people that don't live in CRA districts that are saying, why are we subsidizing this stuff? Why is it that we don't get our roads fixed or our parks fixed, but you're doing things in other areas? And so we need to communicate more effectively, not to promote ourselves, but to talk about how the CRA is effectively spending the money. And so as we talked about how to do that, I think everybody agreed that it should be a separate communication effort. Sure, collaborate with the communication department of the city, but it would be a separate effort. That's how we ended up with a separate CRA logo. We didn't have that before. The staff came up with a tagline, strengthening communities, and some other stuff. And any CRA project, it should have that in it. When there's a press conference, the press conference should be organized around the CRA chair schedule, which it hasn't been in the past. The CRA chair should be front and center. If the CRA chair, for whatever reason, is not available, the vice chair of the CRA should be front and center. The backdrop should have a CRA logo so that the media picks that up. The CRA chair would be the top speaker. We also should invite the mayor. But somebody's got to organize all of this is the thing. And so who's going to organize it? My professional recommendation is we hire internally a senior level communication marketing person and a graphic designer, and they can organize all that and outsource them. Instead, the administration came back and said to the staff, no, you're going to outsource to a marketing company, and the budget's $500,000. Now that you can tell us the status of. I think the RFP has not moved forward, but
No, yes.
Okay, I guess Mike probably should have.
Give us just a second, because there are other people that might want to speak, and
No,
since I'm the chair.
this is my turn.
No, well, he was
I just asked him a
speaking.
question.
I know, but don't do that. Let me call on you to speak, because you've already spoken.
Can I speak now?
Okay, Board Member Clendenin, go ahead.
So maybe I should have asked you the question. So Councilman Carlson had referred to a $500,000 contract. Does that exist, or are you guys pursuing that?
Yes, there is and this is something I'm being brought up to speed on. So there is a procurement, it's sitting in procurement, and there is a RFP that will be going out or is scheduled to go out to procure services for community engagement, and that covers our web presence, social media, and all of that. And this is something that's been in the hopper for quite some time, and they would cover all of the CRAs. It would not just be one specific CRA district.
Was that something that was a board decision that I'm not privy to?
Excuse me, Mr. McCray, let me just speak on that as the chair. Remember, let's go back a couple of months, B Parks presented to us our marketing plan and our logo and strengthening community. She did this whole presentation,
Right.
and at that time, she did indicate, because she's no longer in that role of marketing, she went over to housing, is that we are moving forward with the outside marketing firm that was presented to our board, and at the time we did not question it at this level. So, Ms. Feely, do you want to speak on that as well? I see you sitting over here nodding your head, but it was presented to us at that time under B Parks when she.
and I did make some comments then.
Okay.
Abby Feely,
Thank
Interim
you.
Administrator, Development and Economic Opportunity. Yes, it is, that was the direction. The RFP was developed. The RFP has not been posted yet. It hasn't been awarded or negotiated for us to even come back and say, yes, it is $500,000. I believe that was the amount that was put in to allow for up to that, but the RFP has not been posted yet. So if this board wants to have a discussion and take a different direction, that's completely up to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification on that. Any other comments from this side of the room? Any other comments?
No, that's against.
Okay, Board Member Hurtak.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have, for us to receive the job descriptions for this communication and community engagement and operations and contract supervisor preferably before the next meeting so we can make some edits and changes and then prepare to go forward with actually putting those jobs out.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Board Member Carlson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any discussion? Excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, you would like, okay.
I'm just listening. I had a young lady speak this morning, and I'm not certain question what you said about a house being sold for $750,000 or something to that. Is that one that the CRA did, or that's one that somebody else bought?
Private.
And I can't argue with that because that's a private, but we are not building on $750,000. I
Correct.
want to make sure that that's on the record.
Thank you.
That I want to, and I appreciate what you said but I have no control over private enterprise, what they buy and what they sell and what they make or don't make or whatever. But I appreciate you letting us know, and let us know if we make a mistake and do one for $750,000.
Yeah,
But I don't think that's going to happen. The next thing here we're talking about, and I know these are all different things, but what all these different things add up to in my mind is that for $500,000, I could buy 2 houses if I had the lot for somebody to live in. And I'm going to give it away to somebody to create a logo or something to that effect. Am I correct or wrong?
It would be more than just the logo.
Right, it was to really communicate what's happening in all of our CRAs so that we could be consistent across the board. It had been said that, like Ybor City gets a lot of information that's put out there in marketing versus Drew Park, so we wanted to bring some equity to the situation and uniformity. That was what was discussed. Anyway, so we can get off on a tangent, but let's just stay focused on, so the motion, we had the motion, it did pass. Soto, did you get that information? We did vote on that?
Can I clarify?
You want to clarify?
Just to make sure that it comes to our September,
12th meeting.
yes, 12th meeting.
Okay.
Just to make sure that I put
And
it.
could I suggest,
Yeah, well,
could I also suggest
sure,
maybe as
Attorney
part of
Massey.
the motion that you might request HR to be available to interface with?
Sure, that sounds wonderful. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Madam
And
Chair.
Board Member Carlson?
Yeah, Madam Chair, considering that we just had a part of this discussion about marketing and branding, if I may, I would like to make a motion that we add a discussion about the marketing and branding strategy for the September board meeting.
Second, with a comment?
Hold on just a second. September board meeting, not a workshop. Okay, where we're going to make the decision, or is it presented to us on September the?
No, we can have a discussion among ourselves,
Okay.
not asking staff to present anything. We would just have a discussion about marketing, branding. In the meantime, you can talk to whoever you want, your advisors, and we can decide an approach and strategy of how to deal with it. If the outcome is you all think we should spend $500,000, we can, or we can hire people in the house or not do anything. But I don't think anybody's prepared to have discussion today, so we would just put it on the schedule for a discussion among ourselves.
Can you say that motion in a sentence so we can get a second, please?
I got a second, but I had a comment.
Okay, discussion.
The only thing I would add to that is if we could get a copy of the RFP that they haven't put out yet. So we can have a discussion
And
about
job
that.
description.
Yeah, well, the RFP
I thought
for.
you asked for that already.
Yeah, I asked for these positions, but this is for the
RFP, okay.
the RFP for the communications portion,
So the motion.
right? I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, the motion is to schedule a board discussion on marketing and branding for the September 12th meeting, and then would request to staff to please provide us relevant background information, including the RFP and proposed job description.
Okay, so since there's no one currently in that role, are you're saying is staff presenting to us, or we're just having a public discussion about
Just a
it
discussion
without
among ours.
staff participating?
The staff can
and recommending?
participate, but we're not
Okay.
asking them to present anything. We're
Correct.
just having a discussion among ourselves.
And there was a second by Board Member Hertag. Further comment by Board Member Clendenin?
Motion to amend, friendly amendment, I guess, to direct staff not to pursue the RFP until after this discussion.
And you
I
accept
accept
that?
it.
And I
Okay.
accept it. The seconder accepts.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Okay. Mr. McCray.
Yes, so that concludes the director's report. And we will roll into the bi-monthly CRA manager's report, and with
Yep.
that, the next person you will hear from is Ms. Courtney Orr.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
could I ask a question?
Sure, Board Member Carlson.
Mr. McCray, and I'm sorry to ask you this question, we don't have anybody here else to ask maybe, but do you know what the status is on advertising the director position? I think it's been posted, I've got a copy of it, but do you know that?
Attorney Massey?
I believe that, and actually I think Ms. Hurtak will be back, but she had asked for a copy of what was posted last time and wanted to have a board discussion, I think, under new business about that posting and to maybe suggest some revisions to HR.
Okay, I'll wait, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Reports?
Good morning. Courtney Orr, CRA Development Manager of Central Park Channel District Downtown and Tampa Heights Riverfront. So we were before you last month giving you a presentation on the fiscal year 25 proposed budget. And so we really just broadly spoke about the 11 categories that are in each of our budgets without going into any kind of a dive of the projects that we're working on. So this presentation we're going to give you is more about the items that CRA staff is busy working on. So the first I have is Central Park, and Central Park was just presented by Thomas Murphy, so a lot of the items are already covered. But we are working on the Community Redevelopment Plan update that's gone through many reviews. Again, kudos to the USF team. They attended all CAC meetings and provided or gathered feedback that was provided by the CACs. So that is in draft form for legal review. And if there are no other adjustments, we're going to be asking that it come to you on September 12th for a first presentation of that plan. And then we are still working on the wayfinding signs. The image was approved by this group, and so we're going to be moving forward with an RFQ for the fabrication and installation and maintenance of those signs in the 4 areas that I represent. And then again, just some activities that Thomas had already mentioned, that we have relocated those CAC meetings to the Read It Encore to get more community participation, we hope. And they worked very well with me on drafting the fiscal year 25 budget, and we completed that. And they have a very strong interest in art and have mentioned having some sort of gateway or historically significant art, maybe to serve as a gateway into Central Park, so you know you've entered, just like Ybor City has the large arch on 7th Avenue. I think they're thinking that something along those lines would be great to know you've entered into Central Park. And then we do have on the books to do a future walking community advisory committee, so we can really put our eyes on all the progress that has been made in Central Park. The next meetings are on August 21st and October the 16th. They start at 4:30, and those are again at the Read It Encore. And then moving into Channel District, a little bit longer of a list here. We are working on the Riverwalk Extension Study at Beneficial Bridge. We have a contractor engineer under contract to do that study. We'll be doing an on-site visit and getting that work started this month. Then there's a lot of work. If you haven't driven in Channel District lately, you'll probably be rerouted when you do. There's a lot of work going on, improvements for Channel District on Channel Side and Twigs. You've received a presentation on Washington Street Park and the renovations that we'd like to have there. So an RFP will go out for it for actual construction. And then we had acquired 810 Channel Side Drive. There's a new windscreen, so if you're driving Channel Side Drive and you see a large CRA windscreen at 810, that's us just kind of securing the site so we can get going on what the proposal would be for construction of a new urban park at that location. You are aware of the Florida Aquarium renovations funding agreement. That still needs to be drafted, but we will be providing funding up to the Florida Aquarium's hard cost improvements, $5 million over the next 3 fiscal years, starting in fiscal year '25. Again, Channel District was part of the wayfinding sign study, so you'll see new wayfinding signs in Channel District. And then we're following the Parks ADA compliance for Parks study of where we needed to do ADA enhancements for certain parks throughout the city. And community policing, the CAC really wanted to, not that there was a crime uptick or anything like that, but the CAC had asked that we tie in some security cameras in Channel District with TPD's CCTV service. So just by CAC request and direction, we're working with TPD to install some new cameras in the Channel District. So we have enhanced landscaping. There was an interest of the CAC to really improve the landscaping Channel District. So we have, working with parks, we have someone under contract, a company under contract to work on the landscaping and make sure that's looking good in the district. Intensive pressure washing, also based on a CAC request. We have someone on board doing intensive pressure washing like is done in Ybor. Same company actually. And CAC activities and recommendations, going through the fiscal year '25 budget process with them, it was very clear that their priority is land acquisition in the Channel District. So we're working with real estate to identify those available properties that we could investigate. And their meetings are at the Tampa Bay Port Tampa Bay Boardroom, starting at 5:30. The next ones are September 4th and October 2nd. Okay, downtown. There's just some logos there of the people that or the groups that we are supporting. And here also, we have a community redevelopment plan update that is happening. You've already received one presentation, and they'll be coming back to you in October for a final presentation for that CRP update done by consultant Kittleson. And since Riverwalk kind of splits between Beneficial Bridge, that study is Channel District and downtown. Each of those districts is putting a 50-50 split of $150,000 each to do that study. The streetcar extension and modernization project, that funding request made by a CRA motion will come to you today. Herman Massey Park, that work is, monies are secured there to get started on that. Kid Mason Community Center is underway and it's expected to be completed by late summer, the fall. Tampa Theater renovations, I put the $14 million there. They have not drawn down on that, but that is over a few fiscal years. But that's under a funding agreement. Union Station renovations, also making progress with that, working with facilities. The Straz Performing Arts Center, that funding agreement amount, so the monies are held until they start to draw down on that funding approved by the CRA board. Tampa Museum of Arts, that's the total funding amount approved by the CRA board. That's also a funding agreement. And then TBD on the Royal Street housing project known as the Army-Navy site. And again, wayfinding is part of the other 2 districts I've already described, so we'll have identification in downtown. And then Jackson House roadway improvements, that was money that the CRA board did approve and move, so the monies are there when mobility needs to access that funding. And then our debt service for the improvements into Tampa Convention Center. And then $14 million I have there for SPP infrastructure improvements because it was a $50 million agreement, but it is a balance of about $14 million of what still is to be paid out to those infrastructure improvements. And then we expect, along with the Union Station renovations, an art piece of artwork or a memorial monument, and that those monies are kept aside for that process to start. And then our ADA compliance, those are the parks that will be brought up to compliance. And Franklin Street, you've heard before of the Tampa Partnership's effort to want to revitalize Franklin Street. So that is scheduled to come to you in October. The Tampa Downtown Partnership will present to you their study that they have already conducted and would come along with a funding request. And the community meetings are in TMOB on second floor, starting at 5:30. Next ones are September 3rd and October 1st. Next is Tampa Heights Riverfront. That also, at USF, the USF team has been doing the community redevelopment plan update for that district. So the Tampa Heights Riverfront, along with Central Park, would come to you September the 12th. And then Tampa Heights, their strong interest is arts. So they have talked, since I came on board for these districts, since I've been there, how much they want roundabout artwork placed in those two locations, Palm and North Boulevard and Highland. And so we're going to be working with the Arts Department and the CAC and the community to determine what sculpture or what artwork would be best suited for the Tampa Heights Riverfront roundabouts. So again, arts and culture discussions, planning, that's really what's on their radar and what they want to dive into. We meet at the Bush Ross Law Firm starting at 6 p.m. Next ones are August 20th and October the 15th. And that concludes those four.
Okay, Board Member Hurtak, followed by Board Member Carlson.
Thank you. I'm really excited about all these plans you talked about, and so I'm just going to request that whatever presentation they have be an on-base, but also the plan itself. That background information, sometimes that doesn't make it to on-base, but just so that I can and we can look at it before the presentation is really important to make sure to get that background. So it's my one request for both the Central Park and then the Tampa Heights for next month, but then the downtown for October. Okay. And then I had a question about the Army Navy. Last I had heard, the RFQ was ready to go out. How are we there?
Yeah, and can someone talk to that? Thank you.
Good morning, Abby Feely. I'm not sure whom said it's ready to go out. It is in a draft form. It's under review right now by both purchasing and the legal department. I'm meeting with Evan Johnson of the planning department next week to go through. There are some comments and changes that do need to be made in terms of what is being requested, AMIs for units, etc. But I would say is probably 70 to 75% of the way there, but I think it does need some final tweaks. Evan is serving as point of contact on the lead on that going out.
Wonderful, thank you.
And I've asked for a timeline when I meet with him next week on that as well.
Wonderful, and that, yeah, I may ask Evan to come and present to us in September then on that.
Are you interested in seeing that before it goes out?
Yes, I think the board right now, at least me personally, I would like to see that RFQ before it goes out, yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I already called on you.
Okay.
I said
I just
followed
wanna make
by
sure.
Board Member Hurtak. I know, thank you. All right.
On the Army Navy thing project, I think one of the discussions, Cedric, we can talk about this offline too, but one of the discussions I think we all need to have is what is the specific role of the CRA? I've said before, we're providing the land and we have to make sure that whatever goes on it follows the law regarding CRA land and money. But besides that, I don't see the CRA as project managers, but that's a separate conversation for another day. It's a city project, but the CRA is putting land in, but we just need to define roles. The other thing is, Cedric, I would recommend that on the updates are excellent and they've evolved over the last few years. One category I'd recommend adding is housing, since we are putting so much money in housing, and it is one of the stated things in the Florida statute. But I noticed the Army Navy is under infrastructure. Since we have so many people that come before us asking, what are you doing with housing? If it was under a housing category, that would show that we're doing, and the same thing with some of the others. Just kind of randomly going through, On the Franklin Street project, do we have any idea what they're gonna, how much they're gonna ask for?
Yes, their funding request will be $6 million. And looking at the cash flow, I was projecting it would be fiscal year 25, 26, and 27, $2 million each fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. And we can talk about that then. I just wanted to get a ballpark. And then, again, randomly going through some of the slides, on SPP, it's 15 million from us, but how much is left of the county match? So it was 100 million total. The county's money still flows through us, right?
We basically approve the request, and then the county then compensates on a dollar-for-dollar basis for what the.
So does that mean 15 million is left on the county match
Yes,
also? Okay.
yes, correct.
All right, I just want, just for disclosure. And then on the art stuff, I think that there, as Morris always reminds me, there are ordinances regarding how the city handles public art. But I think that we ought to, especially when we get an arts person, overlay CRA requirements. The Public Art Committee meets in the public. But for example, I think that any proposed art solutions paid by the CRA should at least go to the CACs, and they should be publicly viewed by the CAC, and they should be publicly viewed at the CRA board meeting so folks have input on them. And so that's maybe a discussion for another day. But also, I had a discussion with Erica about this before she left, but the World War II monument or sculpture at Tampa Union Station, we approved that like 3 years ago. It's not, creating a sculpture is not dependent on the building being renovated. We can figure out where the sculpture will go and buy it now. It could even go on site somewhere else. But there's a whole process that has to lead up to it. If we wait until Tampa Union Station's done, it's going to be 3 or 4 years. And so I would encourage that process to move forward because we allocated the money 2 or 3 years ago. Well, Herman Massey Park, I know the downtown neighborhoods are very concerned about that. It was delayed for a couple years because of some questions about the property around it. But do you have any idea when it might be finished?
Well, they're just getting ready to commence. The sculpture, my understanding is the art sculpture that will go in there is completed, but the funding had to be moved in order for us to get started on the construction. And the funding of that we just moved was just about 3 months ago.
When do you have any idea ballpark when it would be finished, just so we can tell the neighborhoods?
Let me look at my project. I'll see if I have a ballpark on
While you're
here.
looking at that, I'll just go through some other things so I don't run out of time. The signage downtown, I know the downtown partnership had defined 7 different sub-neighborhoods, and they probably have given you input into branding for them. I think they maybe even came up with some logos. But I hope that when we do branding, if Channel District is part of a downtown rebranding, I hope that there's some separate identification of Channel District and the other neighborhoods, so that there's some sub-branding identities there.
Yeah. And just to respond to that, we did work with the partnership and agreed to incorporate the
Okay.
identity branding that they created for their 7 neighborhoods into our wayfinding signage. So we
Great.
already have agreed to that.
And thank you. And then the landscaping in Channel District, please just connect with Harbor Island. I know we don't go into that area, but there should be a smooth transition because they control the landscaping on the other side. And the last thing is the downtown parking app and signage that Vic and Mobility would like. It seems to me like that's something that's nice to have, not necessary. And so if we're trying to move that money into road repair in the city budget, it seems like that would be a reasonable thing for the CRA to pay for.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, he was.
But he didn't get an answer to his.
Did you want
Yes,
to respond to that question? I apologize.
Urban Massey, yeah, just looking at the notes, so the RFP for construction closed on June 25th. So the RFP has been, awarded. So there's a construction consulting services firm that has been contracted. So I'll have to get back with you on the start date and completion date.
Board Member Vieira, followed by Board Member Clendenin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I look at the numbers that were cited there for ADA accessibility. I want to be very clear what I mean when I say that the CRA ought to have accessible playgrounds. It's not just to be able to access the land, but that once you get there, that there's playground equipment there, that a child in a wheelchair can use. That's very, very important for me, and this board has voted for that a lot of times. Are we doing that? For example, does Waterworks Park have a piece of playground equipment there that a child in a wheelchair can use?
I believe that the CRA allocation is for, upgrading the playground equipment within the parks within the CRAs to make them more accessible for folks. That's my understanding of that purpose of that CRA allocation.
And in particular, and thank you for that, Mr. Massey, in particular, I'm looking at Waterworks and Curtis Hickson. Those are big parks that, I live in Hunters Green. I used to take my son to Curtis Hickson Park a lot back when he was younger. Those are parks that are, used by folks from all over the city. Do those two parks in particular right now, to the best of your knowledge, have playground equipment there that could be used by a child in a wheelchair, for example, if you guys know?
Yeah, I do not have that answer right this minute, sorry,
So,
I can find out.
So if I may, and I cite these two parks because, again, my vision is to have every park to not just be accessible in terms of, being able to reach the land, but then while you get there, be able to have equipment that a child in a wheelchair who's not mobile, et cetera, can use. May I make a motion?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, I motion, and I'll have this come back in December, and if you all need more time, that's fine. And thank you, Board Member Miranda, to have a report come back on these two parks in particular, on Waterworks Park and on Curtis Hickson Park, on, in particular, wheelchair accessible playground equipment. And number one, is it there? Number two, what can we do to get something there as soon as possible? In particular for those parks. Those are big parks that they're in wonderful locations in the sense that they're places where a lot of people go to and use. And I think those parks in particular would be really important for that. So that's my motion. And again, and if you all need more time, let me know. It's cool.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Board Member Vieira, second by Board Member Miranda. Any discussion?
Yes.
Board Member Clendenin.
This was part of, I have another question after this one for the next subject, but this was actually part of what I was trying to get recognized for. Because I was curious because the Perry Harvey Park in Tampa Bay Plaza is $178,000, and then you look at the other ADA compliance like $10,000, $30,000. So that's what I was questioning, the disparity between the investments, like what are we actually doing with that money? I think that might be a nice informative briefing as to what the plan is for that. Like, so why those two parks are 178 and these other parks are so small? Is it just because they're already built out? And then I also wonder, like Perry Harvey Park is so new, how in the world was it not built ADA compliant? It's like,
Well, it doesn't have sprinklers either, so.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Well, Perry Harvey Park was originally done back in the 90s, and so some of the upgrades that the newer parks have enjoyed, I think Perry Harvey Park may lag behind, so that may be part of the reason.
Okay.
But part of I think maybe in December, it would be helpful to have parks and maybe facilities here to
Come
kind
down
of
to break
present
down.
and break down that information for the board.
Very good, thanks.
And if I may?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you. We get briefed on that. I think it is twice a year on how all the parks are doing. I think in CRA and regular city council, I believe. But yes, so Board Member Clinton, that is one thing that caught my eye when I saw like $10,000 and I went, oh, what's up with that? Yeah, so but again, I cite these two parks and obviously one in every park, but again, these two parks in particular just caught my eye.
Yeah, and I just had a thought,
Sure.
and that is split over a few fiscal years. So you'll see 10,000 may seem like a low number, but it's greater than that, because it's just split over about 4 fiscal years. And we have that breakdown that we can provide. And it's information that was provided by the Parks Department, how much they needed from the CRA in order to do their requested enhancements.
Well, it's
So-
possible they're contributing from city money too, that's just CRA contribution?
Correct.
Okay,
And ours is split over several fiscal
Okay.
years, so.
yeah, that's good to know.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Board Member. You want to comment again?
Yes,
Sure.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I apologize. And I want to emphasize that my motion contemplates that if there is not such equipment there, that this motion contemplates making it a priority from this day forward. In other words, I don't want it to come back in December and go, nothing, and we haven't done anything to move it forward. In other words, that if y'all find out there isn't anything there, let's at least start talking about a plan of action to make it happen. So, thank you.
Board Member Clendenin.
Is there a, I guess this will be after for Parks, maybe we should wait for a meeting to talk to Parks about, is there an assessment that we could look at of all of these parks of like what's, you know?
Board Member, yes.
Yes, ma'am. So we
Yeah.
get briefed on that twice a year.
For
I just.
accessibility?
Yes, sir. Yep. We get briefed on that already. Again, these two just caught my eye, just given their location, how it's used by everybody in the city, et cetera. But I agree, it's something obviously we gotta look at, citywide, but that I motioned for that to come back twice a year, so we already got that.
I think I've got a homework assignment. I need to start going other, with an eye towards the, taking a look for my own eyes.
Amen.
Let me just add, I mean,
Attorney Massey.
my recollection is when you all approved, allocating dollars for enhancement to the city parks within the CRAs to upgrade the playground equipment so they are more accessible. Part of that, was the fact that the Parks Department has a plan for upgrading all the city parks,
Yeah.
but it's going to be spread over a huge number of years because of the dollar amount.
Right.
And that what the CRA was doing was allowing those upgrades to occur much more quickly within the CRAs. I believe that's and so, but the parks needs to be part of the conversation to tell you what's happening and kind of what the plan is and how the CRA funding is integrating with what the parks is doing with those facilities. So.
Okay, we have a motion for that report by Board Member Vieira, second by Board Member Miranda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Board Member Clendenin.
So, back to, I guess, Abby Feely. On the Army-Navy site, a reminder that in our discussion, they were supposed to come and have individual meetings with all of us prior to the RFP to ensure that all of our wants, needs, and desires are at least worked through. That was part of the IOU on that project before the RFP went out. So if you just remind everybody that was supposed to happen.
Right.
Abby Feely, thank you. I'll look into that.
Okay.
I think the comment made by Councilman Carlson was, what is the role of the CRA? And I did write that down, and I know it's a land, disposition within the CRA, which requires the RFP, and we will get those set up. Once I think if you afford us just the opportunity to finish the draft so that we can come and meet with you to get that input.
Well, I think it was part of if I recall, part of that dynamic conversation was, that they were gonna come in and have those preliminary meetings as they were drafting that. And it's whether we're wearing the CRA hat or the city council hat, which hand is in which pot at any given moment. I think it'd be valuable. So, because it's always better to have the input on the beginning than the end.
Understood.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I had in my notes that it was supposed to be coming to us this summer. Who's the interim planning director?
Evan Johnson.
Okay, so yeah, I think we should have a motion for him to come and report on the status of where it is. You said that? You said that? You did?
I will
Officially.
happily put that in a motion for you.
Yeah, do that for me so that I don't have to give away my
So
gavel.
we'll go ahead and ask for that update from Mr. Johnson. On September 12th.
Second.
Thank you all. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for that. Yeah, because I could have sworn that when I had a conversation with Elise Drumgo that it was very close.
Yeah.
And that's housing. So we want to make sure we stay on top of that because it's about implementation. Thank you so much. Okay.
Good morning again, Cedric McCray. Wearing my Drew Park hat and East Tampa hat this morning at this point. So, if you get the presentation back up. Yes, so a lot of what Drew Park's focus has been in the recent year has been improving the mobility, connectivity, and safety improvements. And they have allocated and made their recommendation, and you all approved back in June of this year to fund the mobility, connectivity, and safety improvements project. And that's something that they had worked with the consultant over a period of time under the previous manager, and have decided to go ahead and allocate funding to those improvements. And we're working with our project management team, Ms. Martinez and her team, to bring those into fruition. landscape and streetscape safety audit improvements that were suggested as well. And then one of the requests that they had, and you may have heard this from Ms. Astor Keyser when she presented back in March, was related to a neighborhood pocket park. There is a lot that the Drew Park CAC and CRA actually have ownership of, and we're working with Parks and Rec right now to develop a design and footprint, and that was the previous picture that you saw from one of the presentations. And when we have the next meeting, there'll be some engagement with the Drew Park CAC as it relates to what they would like to see and Parks and Recreation's plans moving forward. There was a facade grant, I believe, for fencing, and you may see LEED on there as we have established a new grants process. We are actively having consultations with various business owners and residents through the various CRAs, and so Drew Park has had one lead or one contact with a business owner to date. Some of the activities, and this will be reflective of what the infrastructure projects are and the amounts. And as I stated, you all approved the request in their recommendation at your June 13th meeting. And upcoming meeting dates and times are listed, and happy that HCC is working with us. There have been some challenges as it relates to the location and the space, but they have been very accommodating to us. Any questions on Drew Park?
Any questions? Board Member Hurtak.
I just wanted to say it because we're just talking about parks. Please make sure that there is an ADA compliant portion to this part, to the playground, so that we don't have to go through this all over again. So,
Yes, will do.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Miranda, thank you. Okay.
And moving on to East Tampa, you see our famous Gator building. I would like to highlight the
famous Gator building.
Yes, the Summer Youth Symposium that took place on July 29th. And we have some of the student participants there that were able to attend, and a couple of our CAC members, and some elected officials also that were present, and greatly appreciated their participation. On the bottom left, the East Tampa CAC voted to forego their August meeting to hold a community engagement and visioning workshop related to the Palafox properties. I believe Ms. Burton may have alluded to that in her comments during public comment. And, so we had a cross-section of folks that were there, and just kind of having open discussion about potentially what could be placed on that site and what the feedback was. And we'll be reporting back once the survey is concluded at, I believe it's August 22nd, and then we'll report that information back out to the CAC, and then if they have recommendations, then we'll bring it to you all as a CRA board later this year. And the last photo is the Faith Baptist Church on the corner of 12th and Osborne. So we are looking to move forward with demolition on that site and get it cleared. And we have had a community engagement and visioning session back in April, and we will be bringing that information back to the East Tampa CAC in October.
Good.
Okay, so we are currently just getting ready to get started with our community redevelopment plan update. You all have approved the firm that will be working on that, and ironically, Professor Green is also involved, and so USF will have a hand in the build out of that redevelopment plan. And I believe he was a part of the first iteration back in 2004, 2005 timeframe. So it's almost coming full circle. So that will be moving forward as it relates to the studies that we have in East Tampa. I did mention Faith Baptist Church and the demolition. Memorial Park Cemetery fencing. The fencing contract was approved by the City Council, I believe, last month, and the vendor is on board, and hopefully we will have that completed sometime in October.
It takes a year. Oh, nothing.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I was just saying, everything takes so long. It's like a year.
Everything takes a year.
It's crazy.
Yes. So
Years.
we've been in
temporary
constant.
fencing on it.
Yeah.
So they have at least have that.
And
Yeah,
we
so
have a
we've
marker.
been in constant contact with Parks and Recreation, and as you know, we have a few members in the community that serve on our CAC, so they are constantly reminding and inquiring about that. So,
Yeah.
so yes, hopefully the fencing will be completed sometime early, mid-October.
Thank you.
Yes.
And even when it was damaged, let me just say it was damaged and the community was on top of that. They came out and repaired it, so we're making progress. I'm pleased.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Folks at
McCray.
Parks and Recreation actually helped facilitate that, and so that was greatly appreciated because I also received phone calls and emails about the damage when the car ran into the fence. So, so kudos to Parks and Recreation, and we're looking forward to bringing that portion of the refencing to a conclusion here in the next few months. Already talked about the community engagement piece as it relates to Palafox Properties. We also, on North 22nd Street, I know that CRA Board Member Maniscalco has had a vested interest in this with the allocation of the $1.5 million to the pond in FY25. We have had an on-site meeting with Parks and Recreation staff, Stormwater, and our CRA staff. I believe that meeting was on July 30th in the morning to just kind of discuss possibilities, and we may have some renderings that will be done to kind of fit, and we'll have a range. So it may be just, if we're going with the bare bones 1.5, and if we find some additional funding to increase what the upgrades could be, we will do that also. And then when we were on site, we also talked through a number of possibilities to help enhance the access for the surrounding neighborhood. So more to come on that. Ms. Orr mentioned roundabouts. As you know, in East Tampa on 34th Street, there are roundabouts that are present, and there was several discussions previously, 3-4 years ago, and we are going to be working with Public Art to navigate that space and try to get something in those roundabouts within the next fiscal year. Mm-hmm. Gator Building, we're still actively trying to acquire properties in and around the location, and I hesitate to say more than that, because if I do, then
Of course.
right. Yes. So thank you, Attorney Massey, and to Councilman Vieira's point, and I think we already had discussed the ADA compliance. So yes, that is spread out over a number of years, and we will communicate with Parks and Rec to try to highlight the 2 parks that you mentioned a few moments ago. Emergency roofing grant is moving. I believe we have about 20 more on the list to complete. Good. And so that's going well. And we had 1 facade grant, and as it relates to the leads, we had about 12 leads and or pre-application meetings related to businesses in East Tampa. So the word is out, and so I want to commend Ms. Reed and her team for moving that, and the level of customer service has been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So I haven't heard any negative comments. They've all been positive related to the enhanced grant process. And most of this is stuff that I've touched on previously, as relates to the August meeting and visioning, and also the upcoming meetings for the East Tampa CAC.
Okay. All right.
And I would also like to highlight that we have put out applications to the neighborhoods in East Tampa that would be cycling on, I believe October, November timeframe. So we will keep you posted on that, but we have received a few applications. Would like to see some more. So we will be making another push with those, the neighborhoods that you all designated, to make sure that they are able to supply an applicant moving forward. Any questions?
Yeah, before Board Member Hurtak, where's that wrought iron gate that says West Tampa? It's
Salsinas Park.
It's so
Salsinas
pretty.
Park.
It will be, that's a
Yeah, that's a rendering, yeah. Salsinas Park?
Yes.
I like it. Okay, Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. I just wanted a little update on the church demo. Like, how close are we to getting that done?
So we have Ms. Martinez and I have had some conversations. There was an award given to a vendor that had been selected, and we're possibly looking at doing an emergency procurement and filling out the necessary form to go ahead and move forward. But we don't have a definite time frame on when that may
Okay,
take
yeah,
place.
because that is an ASAP thing. I know that the community is struggling with folks using that area, and I
Yes.
know it's constantly having to be re-secured.
Yes, we've actually gone through the expense of securing the windows and doors
Yeah.
on the bottom floor.
Mr. McCrae's been advised as to how to expedite that process.
Wonderful.
So
Yes.
That's super, then. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So that the community knows that that's happening. And then I just wanted to talk about the 34th Street roundabouts for a minute. Art is wonderful, but when we're looking at art, I think we also need to look at the turning radius on that, because the problem, I mean, the folks keep mowing down the signs on the side, so I'm a little concerned about putting art there without fixing that roundabout to some degree, maybe bringing it in a little bit somehow. I just, the turning is very difficult, and I don't really want to, I mean, I don't want to throw good money after something that could easily be, I mean, hit, just, those are really tight, so I would really like to look at just overall.
any modification of that, you probably need to get mobility involved in,
Sure,
because they were involved
yeah.
in the design of that. So if you've got questions about any modifications
Yeah.
to that, you probably need to ask for mobility.
Okay, great, and so that my recommendation would just simply be to get mobility involved in that, because I'm sure they're there at least every other week replacing a sign or fixing a sign. Because I never pass when there isn't a sign with an issue. So I just really want to make sure that we're fixing the entire issue and not just, adding some landscaping or some art, which will be lovely when it's done, but I really want to make sure we hit the whole root of the problem. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Thrower,
Good morning.
set the timer. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Brenda Thrower. I'm the West Tampa and Ybor City Development Manager, and happy to be with y'all today. I am going to lead you through what is happening with West Tampa. And thank you, Chair Henderson, for bringing up the pretty picture in the top left there on West Tampa. That is Salsinas Park. And so this just gives you a flavor of some of the pictures of some of the activity that's happening in West Tampa. There's a lot of focus on parks right now, and so I'll go right into the slides because they've got a lot of stuff going on. First of all, there's been some studies done that y'all have probably been aware of. There was an alleyway study done recently that was concluded. It's actually, it went to the CAC and they've identified 10 alleys that they really want to focus on for improvement. So there's a little bit of expansion on that contract that we're going to be working not only with the alleys but with the businesses that are adjacent to those alleys. The parking study was completed and we're actually utilizing it. Some of the recommendations, we have those, especially in some of the park projects as we move into infrastructure projects. Salsinas Park is underway right now. They're almost completion with design plans. Ray Park is moving right along as well. That is where we're not only looking at doing parking, applying some of the parking recommendations, but also it's going to be a pretty significant change in that park. Actually, a new building will be going in that park, so that'll be really exciting. The community's been very involved with it. Freedom Park, we had acquired a piece on Main Street there. It's a park, it was a piece of property, let's just say. It's undergoing a comp plan change because it was a community commercial 35 designation, and we need to move it to a recreational open space. It's going through Planning Commission. I believe that's coming up on this month on the 12th, and then it will be coming back to y'all as City Council on the 29th. So there'll be a land use change there. There's also an environmental assessment going on. We're working with a firm to make sure the soil is has been assessed and there's cleaning that needs to be done. That will happen. Main Street, some movement here. We're going to start the Quick Build project. The CAC approved moving forward with mobility on it. This is the section from Armenia to Delaware. It'll start to take shape, let's just say. This will be the first of a transformation for Main Street, which will include some on-street parking and some beautification. We're hoping to get that done before the FRA conference, so we could actually, because we're taking the bus down that way, which I'll talk to y'all about later. Fremont Linear Park, that is the park, as you know, and also there's the cross street. So I'd like to share with y'all, if I can, some postcards that went out. We did a survey recently. Got some of these on file. So you'll see before you, this is a postcard that went out to all of the residents, tenants, everyone within West Tampa CRA.
It also was so there's an online survey. As you can see, there's a QR code on it, so you had an online survey, as well as a postcard with a drop box that I stationed at the Hillsborough Education Foundation, which is right on, that's the Centro Espinal building where we meet. So I haven't tabulated everything, but basically we're trying to get a sentiment to see if the community wants to open up those 4 streets, which include West Palmetto, West Cherry Street, Pine Street, and Walnut Street. Those have been closed since 1980. You can see it looks like it should be a street, but it was closed off. So we're trying to see what the community would like to see, and would they like it opened up or not. So that is the question that is on this survey, and I will have the results coming in. It's actually being closed out this week tomorrow. We left the online version open an extra week. But we will have those results, and then we'll be taking that back to the CAC, and then from there we'll bring it to you. And if that becomes a positive, then we will move forward with a project that would include opening up those streets. Moving right along, public art, that's always been an interest in West Tampa. There's they've had a lot of plans about it. We have had a presentation, some interaction with the new arts person at the last meeting. So there'll be more coming out on public art and some ideas for that. I know one of the first things that they wanted was to, really wanted to wrap the utility boxes. So that may be a project that will be the first one on that list. Parks compliance, you'll be very happy. CRA board member Vieira, we have 5 parks that are identified for that amount of money. Fremont, Julian B. Lane, MLK, Ray Park, and Salsinas. All of those will be getting upgrades. So they are planned as part of that. And then at the bottom is the facade grants. I'm sorry, I've got to move on here. Sorry, I'm following it. The commercial grants. The commercial grants, this is what we have going on with commercial grants. These are kind of the old grants, and they're now transitioning into the new grants, but this is the activity we've had to date. We do have 12 leads, and that is everything from internal to external requests for projects. So those will be coming to you when it goes through that process. And here is just a summary of what's going on in West Tampa, some of the activities. The CAC is very active, and they give a lot of recommendations, and so you can see kind of the timeline of where we've been having recommendations and activities. We did manage to move their meeting to the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and it's working out very well. So they meet, their next meeting's on August 20th, and they meet at 5:30 on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. And that concludes West Tampa. Would you like me to move on to Ybor? Okay.
Yes.
All right, and Ybor, let's move on. Okay, here's Ybor. Okay, so to end out the presentation of the manager's report, I thought I'd show you an action shot, okay? That's what's going on. And you're probably going, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get all these calls from businesses, right? Well, they were well aware of what was happening. This is the first thing they do when they start to prepare the street for the bricks. Luckily, it doesn't take very long. They can usually get this done in just a few hours, but this is the milling. This is the portion on the 2nd block of 7th Avenue. We've already completed the 1st block, so we're on number 2. As well, the pictures are also showing some signage improvements that are going in on the South Ybor area. We're redoing a lot of the signs down there and improving them. And of course, the picture at the top is about the YES team, very active team that we have out there doing a lot of wonderful things and working with the community. So if we move into some of the activities here that we've been working on, we did the flooding study, we completed it, we have a plan. It's just a little more complicated than just staying within the CRA. This flooding issue that's happening in the Ybor South area really involves a project that we're working with stormwater on, because it's more involved. The pipe needs to be brought down through the Ybor Harbor. However, in the meantime, they have been working on some interim solutions with the manhole covers. They were popping off during flooding times. They were able to mold those down so that we're not having that problem anymore. So they've been responding to the community. The CRP plan, obviously that's next on our list. We'll be updating that. We need to update that for both Ybor 1 and 2. Bricking is obviously our priority project. It's underway. A little bit of the cost of what that cost us for the first 2 blocks. We have a lot of interest, obviously, from the community of keep moving on that project, and that's what we'd like to do. District signage, again, I think I highlighted some pictures on that. That's going on, and we're working on improving those signs. Centennial Park, we're starting to see some money there. We're working on working with our contract admin to identify some consultants to start that project. So that's really in the infancy stage. Public art, one of the things that we've had an opportunity to do is really to do some activity within the garage boxes. That's something we can look to do. One of the things about public art, it's not in our plan the way we'd like to see it in our plan, so we're gonna be adding that up when we do the CRP updates. And then the parks, ADA compliance, we only have 2 parks, so we have Centennial Park and we have the East Ybor Park. That money will reflect improvements for accessible equipment there. And then moving to commercial grants, facade, that has really been the #1 program that the community has embraced and utilized. That is now, with the new, it's being, of course, transitioned into the new programs. And I'm happy to report we have 11 leads of inquiries from business owners about the new programs. And then, of course, I wanted to highlight the YES team. They are very, very important to Ybor. Very embraced by the community, and just after the storm that just happened on Monday, they were out there at the crack of dawn getting the palm fronds that fell all over 7th Avenue and helping out. Actually, they've helped install the business signage that has helped with the project, the 7th Avenue bricking project. We also have some district improvements we do. We do everything from intensive pressure washing to tree grate maintenance to lamp posts. So we have some money that we are always doing those type of activities. And then community policing, another important program. We have both the enhanced proactive squad from TPD that works the evening shifts and into the evening hours, as well as enhanced code enforcement. And here's just our summary sheet. Some of the, again, another active group. They did take a break in July and decided to not have a meeting. A matter of fact, the YCDC Inc. met instead. So they are still operating and meeting and inviting me to their meetings. So, but they are active and they are, making recommendations. And then their meetings are on the last Tuesday of the month, or is it last Tuesday or 4th Tuesday? It just depends on the calendar, but their next one is coming up on August 27th. And that concludes Ybor City. Are there any questions?
Board Member Clendenin, and looks like Board Member Carlson is next.
So I was in Ybor City and observed the bricking, and it's spectacular.
Thank you.
What a great job they did. So is that, refresh my memory, who's doing the bricking? Is that?
Who's doing it? The actual contractor?
Right.
Well, they're called CWR Roberts Contracting. They're a citywide contractor.
Okay.
So, but they're utilizing a sub, and the sub is I will say he's the bricking subcontractor for a lot of projects. So he's very familiar with Ybor. He has done James Standell. He's done projects all throughout.
I was just
the city.
watching it, and I was going, they were just doing such an amazing job, and the quality of the workmanship and all. It looks great, and I'm excited to see the project move forward. It really is. It is amazing, and I appreciate what's happening down in Ybor City. It's clean. I mean, you're right, the clean team and all. It looked good. And I've been there a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, and every time I've been there, it's amazing. So great job, y'all. I look forward to seeing the bricking completed.
Thank you.
Okay. Carlson?
On the, thank you. Yeah, the bricks are beautiful. As we discussed before, there's a lot of unwarranted criticism, and if we had our communication people, we could push back on some of that.
We can push back ourselves, though. We can still push back.
I'm pushing back also, but there's representation that needs to be made about the biggest criticism is why are you spending this money on bricks instead of fixing my roads? And I think that is better handled by the CRA or the city. Although individual board members can push back, and we all do, I think it is the responsibility of the city or the CRA to communicate on some of these things. It's not all promotional. But anyway, the bottom line is that the bricks are beautiful. I think it is justified. And we worked on that project for a long time. We had heard from the community for a long time that we should get it. And the most important thing I want to say is that I've actually heard compliments from people, businesses in Ybor, that you all estimated a longer time frame than it's actually taken. And so they're very appreciative that they're moving faster than they had projected. And so I think, at least with the businesses, you all set expectations, and it seems to be moving faster, and so they're appreciative of that. The last thing is art. You had public art, and you talked about window displays. We can meet with Morris later and talk about this, but I would try to find a project or a definition that doesn't meet the city's public art process, because then it goes through a committee and all kinds of bureaucracy and legal issues. Instead, I mean, you could call it educational display or whatever, but as you know, there's so many arts groups in Ybor, we could easily give one of them a grant and ask them to do something there. For example, the Photographic Art Museum or whatever. And so it's not the same as building a sculpture in the middle of a roundabout. It can be something that is short-term, and we could even rotate the grant among different nonprofits in Ybor City to
Yeah, there could be opportunities. I mean, the garage is a city facility, but those window boxes, I mean, in cooperation with the city, could be made available to various art groups in Ybor for displays. We could come up with there are possibilities to work on that cooperatively with the CRA as well. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
So I have one more report. Do you want me to move forward? Okay. This is about the conference coming. Can I take a
Yes.
few moments to share? Okay,
Sure.
here we go. All right, so as we all heard and know, we have the Florida Redevelopment Annual Conference that's going to be here October 22nd to the 23rd. And I'd like this time just to hand y'all a copy of the brochure, because I want you all to see it. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank Interim Director McCray. He left this to me to report since I'm the president. I appreciate that. Thank you, Director. But I want to just share with y'all, we have the conference coming here in October. It's going to be at the Tampa Marriott Waterside. This is a conference that brings together all the CRAs throughout the state of Florida, not only practitioners, but elected officials. They're all invited. It is a wonderful environment. It's a learning environment. And I hope that if you can make it or schedule it into your schedule to attend. Our staff is going to help with registrations. You can come to all of it. You can come to part of it. There is one day that it kicks off called a CRA board training. It is it's a session that is designated not for elected officials and practitioners. It's wonderful because you can meet people in other CRAs and learn about that. It also satisfies your ethics requirements if you need to make sure you're checking that box. So we have board training. Another opportunity is the tours, the mobile tours. We have 3 mobile tours that are planned. 2 of those are going to be in Tampa. The first one, I'll talk about the Tampa ones first. We're having a streetcar ride and a walking tour from downtown Channel District to Ybor, with a shout out to Central Park, because they're not maybe on the streetcar, but we're going to talk about them. We have a couple stops along the way. Obviously the streetcar, we can't stop every stop because we will interrupt the line, but we have a designated car. If you would like to be a part of that, we would love to know, and we can put you, a reserved seat on that, as well as if you'd like to speak. Another tour we're going to have is a redevelopment bus tour. That is going to leave the Tampa Marriott Waterside, go through up the riverfront, showcasing Tampa Heights into West Tampa. It'll be stopping off at the West River Development, doing a little walking tour. Hopefully that street along Main Street is going to be done, and we're going to take it up through going north on Howard, and then shooting over on Columbus to go to East Tampa. And in East Tampa, there'll be some highlights as well. They want to stop at the Skills Center. They want to go by the cemetery. They will also be, going by the TPD. It'll be right by the office there on 22nd Street, seeing the Gator Building. And also, we will end at the J.C. Newman Cigar Factory. So that will give a whole flavor for that tour. And then the last tour is going to be Dunedin. Dunedin is our out-of-town tour. We usually incorporate one of those. This is for some of the smaller communities that want to go see maybe a smaller CRA and how they operate. So that will be a bus leaving that morning. And then the West, there's other opportunities. We have welcome remarks. Thank you, Chair Henderson. She's going to be available to give
the welcome remarks prior to one of the keynote speakers, which is Shane Phillips. He's a housing expert from California who's going to be coming in. We also have Richard Gonsmart, who's going to kick off the concert as well. And then, the conference, sorry. And then we also have the awards banquet. That will be on Thursday night. Just so you know, we put in several awards across all of our CRAs. We don't know if we've won yet, but there will be a banquet. If you guys would like to come, we will have a designated table. It's a little bit of a dressy event, but we'd love to have you and also give some recognition. And then on Friday, there'll be a breakfast with experts. That is just a breakfast where we have tables that are set up with different topics. So if you want to engage, you want to lead a topic, we have everything from affordable housing to transportation to expanding your CRA, all sorts of topics that we can that we usually put out on the tables. And then last but not least, I mean, this is priceless networking. It's learning and it's sharing among other CRAs throughout the state. So if you'd like to be there, we want you there. It is in our backyard, and I am very proud to be president this year and bringing this conference to Tampa. So if you have any questions, let me know. And then.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. I've been, both years I've been on this board, and it is a fabulous conference. By far, it is the most relevant conference that I've been to in terms of just being able to put into practice. I've met a lot of really interesting people. I will 100% be there, and I will be part of whatever you want me to be part of. You just tell me where to be, and I'll be there. So I'm happy to do it. And I really hope that all of you at least come to one thing. I think when the CRA conference is in our city, we should all show up. I already made a motion that we don't have a council meeting that week, so we're all free.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I wanted to go to the streetcar thing, but then I looked, it was 7:30 in the morning. Have y'all lost your mind?
Well,
we don't function in a Latin Quarter at 7:30 in the morning.
I know, the tours are early, they're intended, but it won't be leaving at 7:30, so just,
7:30, yeah.
we have to convene and then we have to walk to the streetcar, so.
That means I'm gonna have to go out in Ybor the night before and just roll onto the streetcar.
Any other comments? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're there. At the end, we have a required approval. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business?
If
Oh,
I
yes,
could-
I wanted to give you some time,
Yeah, if
Attorney
you wouldn't mind,
Massey.
there are some legal things that we do need I want to bring to the board's attention that we'll have to deal with at the September meeting.
Yes.
One of which is the update to the services agreement. And I have I would say a red line, but it's a blue line redraft showing the changes that were made to the current services agreement. And let me hand that out to you all. And again, this is just for your review. I would welcome any individual comment that you have between now and the next meeting. I'll be glad to try to incorporate any of your changes. We can have a conversation at the next meeting, but we do need to try to adopt the services agreement.
When would you like these comments?
Well, the meeting's the 12th. If I could get them,
First?
by Labor Day,
Okay.
so that would be helpful, so, before Labor Day.
Okay.
So,
Before Labor Day or after? Right after?
right after Labor Day.
Okay. Yeah, you know, that little extra cheat day.
Call you on Labor Day, we're gonna interrupt you.
Thank you. This one of your,
Yeah, it's the same thing.
one of your last assignments with us?
Well, and also just to remind, there are two other things I would like to let
Yes.
the board to before you all go to your new business. In September, we will also be bringing forward the budget for the CRA for adoption before you all take action on the city budget, because the CRA budget is folded into the city budget. I recall that Ms. Hurtak had wanted the carryover amounts or an estimate of what those would be. I've alerted Revenue and Finance to that, and they're working on those numbers. So hopefully we'll have those in advance in your September meeting but we will be publishing on the website because we're required to under law what the proposed budget is, which will be identical to what's going to be in the city budget, plus the additional information that has been provided as backup for each of the individual redevelopment areas, which are a little more detailed. And then finally, just to alert you, the Florida legislature, in their infinite wisdom, have imposed some additional requirements on CRAs. We are required by October 1st to adopt goals, objectives, and performance measures for our various programs. So staff is going to be, this was just approved in July, or became effective in July. So we're going to be quickly working on a proposed goal, objective, and performance measure document that will be coming to the board in September. It may not be as detailed as we get in subsequent years because we're having to do this on a very quick basis, but I wanted to alert you all to those things that will be coming to the board at your September meeting. So your September meeting may be quite busy given everything else you all have asked for as well. So.
I have a question about that.
Yes, Board Member Hurtak, followed by Board Member Carlson.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So it seems though that Ms. Moody had been putting some of this into play already with, so it's not, we're not doing this kind of out of thin air.
No, I mean, there's, frankly, we're required every spring to bring forward an update of where our programs are.
Okay.
And, frankly, your budget, to some degree, dictates
Yes.
what your priorities are. So the goals, objectives, and the performance measures should be kind of arising out of the budget document. And
Wonderful.
so we've already, I don't think it's going to be that hard to put together some document, but I'm going to be working with Mr. McCray and Ms. Thrower and some other folks we'll try to put together something for you all to look at. So.
Okay, Board Member Carlson.
Did you, sorry if you said this, but I don't remember you mentioning replacing you, so the search for an outside firm.
No, I made a call to I was back talking to Ms. Thrower about this morning. I have a call in to Mr. Shepard, who is the attorney for the Florida Redevelopment Association, to discuss with him what he might recommend. And so we will be trying to bring forward some folks or some names for you all to consider. You will find in the agreement that I just handed out, I've added some language in there saying that whoever's the CRA attorney is subject to your approval, but if they're independent and not an employee of the city, then, and this arises out of the charter, they can't take any action that would implicate the city, not the CRA, but the city, without the city attorney's office approval, city attorney's approval. It's very much how Mr. Shelby operates as well, so I don't think it will impact the independence of that person. But that needs to be built into the document, so that's part. You'll see that's part of the agreement as well.
Thank you. I have new business if you want to start.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Yeah, new business, old business can go together, right? Let's go with you, Carlson.
Okay, thank
You want to go first, I could tell you so excited.
No, I don't care. If you want to go to the other side.
Charlie usually goes first, but let's start on this end. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it works.
And get some love.
Yeah, exactly.
You were looking this way, so I thought, but I'm okay if Charlie wants to go
No,
first.
I'm good.
You all know that I'm passionate about the arts and very involved in the arts.
Yes, we do know that.
The reason is that the arts in every city in the world, the arts are the beginning of redevelopment. In Ybor, the arts moved in the 70s and 80s, and then development happened, the artists move out. But now the artists are moving back in, and they're part of the redevelopment there. St. Petersburg, the whole downtown story is because of the arts. Dumbo in New York is because of the arts, and Wynwood in Miami. We can go on and on and on. So anyway, I think it's important to have a strategic arts person working for the CRA. And we've talked about this before. We had approved it before. Everything went in a different direction. So since the last meeting, I've had multiple conversations with the chief of staff, and he's had conversations with Morris and I think Andrea and everybody involved. And so I've got a motion here to fix the arts staff situation that was written by the chief of staff's office. And so I'm going to read it. It says, it is my understanding that the newly hired CRA arts staff person will be transitioning to a city arts staff person under the sole direction of Robin Nye, and that the CRA, with the assistance of the city, will be posting for a new position that is limited solely to CRA-funded arts programs and projects. Based on this understanding, I make the following motions. One, I move that city's human resource staff be requested to develop a job description for a separate CRA art staff person who will work solely on CRA related arts projects and programs and who will report to the CRA director, and that they provide the CRA board with a draft job description for this position for CRA board approval at the CRA's September 12, 2024 board meeting, and then posting after approval. The second motion part of this is I also move that the newly hired art staff person should continue to work on both CRA and city-related arts projects until a separate CRA art staff person is hired, and will, until that time, work with both Ms. Nye and the CRA director. So 2 motions. Again, this was written by Chief of Staff's office.
Is there a second?
Second, but
Is there some discussion?
yes.
Board Member Hurtak.
There was something about, oh, the draft description. I'm just gonna ask that, again, please, if that's an on-base, so we can make changes before we meet, so we can get it moving. That would be my only request.
The only thing I would say about that, in order to get an item
Oh,
on
okay.
base, it's scheduling with the clerk's office is very aggressive.
Okay,
So
well
it may-
then how about just a week before
So it may
emailed?
It may be emailed to you
Yes.
and not placed on.
Yes,
on base as
but
well.
within a week prior, so that we have time
Right.
to really look at it, I would appreciate that if you would add that to your motion.
Is
The
there-
first motion.
Is there any other discussion? Yes, Board Member Clinton.
Yeah, I think we need time to think about these kind of things. There's a lot, it's just like we were talking about our previous discussion about the $500,000 and maybe it's, and I don't necessarily disagree with the concept or the idea, but trying to figure out the fiscally responsible business model with the integration with the folks that we have within the city that already have the subject matter expertise. Like, I mean, I found it frustrating we had the CRA discussion that the CRA wasn't utilizing our communication department because we have this built up you know us better than anybody. We've got a lot of people down there in communication now with a lot of capability. So I found it kind of interesting that we're not utilizing that in-house resources and talent. And in the same way, does the CRA, is there really a business model or a justification to have our independent person? Is the scope of the work sufficient that justifies a standalone person that we wouldn't, rather than using the art people that we already have, what, 2 or 3 now?
We just have 1, really.
Just one, so this will be the second one?
There's a
This
part
is the
of,
second one.
including this person. Could I respond, Madam Chair?
Yeah, you may respond. Board Member
What this motion says, and again, I didn't write this, but what this motion says is that they will bring back a draft job description. And so at that point, I think we could have a longer discussion about what we want. And I would like to have a longer discussion too.
Hey, I'm gonna channel my Charlie Brand, I'm all for the discussion.
The position we have, the capability we have is mostly focused on public art, which is just a small subset of arts industry, and we can talk about this later. But that department has always needed more staff, and they had like half a person for a while. This now, what the city is saying here is they're committing to create a permanent person to assist in that department. And so they're beefing up. That department is always, for 20 years, has been understaffed. And so they're agreeing to staff that up, and then they'll bring back a job description for this CRA position, and we can discuss and debate it then.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Board Member Miranda.
I just want to know what the dollar amount's going to be
For the director position,
for whoever it is that they're going to choose.
the art director?
I think that would be something that would be discussed, when, maybe next month, when you talk about the posting, you would be talking about the salary range at that point in time. But it's another amount, and it would be something that would be coming out of the CRA budget, not the city budget. So.
It's coming out of our budget. Board Member Vieira.
Yes, and this is why, and by the way, obviously, we want to make sure that the salary issue,
we want to make sure that the salary issue is taken care of and reasonable. I'll be supporting this, and I will likely support it after a discussion because, you know, I kind of look at it from the disability parks issue. The reason I motion to have disability parks under CRA specifically, as well as City of Tampa, is so that we could really make a big concentrated impact with that, and we obviously are. So for this, especially for a lot of areas that are blighted, we could make a very concentrated impact with it. That's why I think the idea is fine. Obviously, I don't want to break the bank on it. So, but yeah, but that's why I'll be supporting it.
But
Board Member Miranda.
I just want to say, all CRA parks within the city, once the city has that standard that you said, Mr. Ayer, and you did very diligent, did that hard work to get it where you're at today, and to continue the progress of having that in all city parks, they have to do it because they're within the city limits. So that, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not a lawyer, but if we have something that's going on in every city park, they themselves have to do it regardless whether they like it or not.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Can I read one more? Yeah,
Sure.
sorry, one more. I mentioned earlier that, and sorry, I thought about this one while we were working today, but there is a set process by ordinance that guides public art, but I think that we need to add an extra step for CRA approval, and so I'd like to make a motion to create a CRA policy that any CRA-funded public art design must be presented to and approved by the CAC and CRA board in addition to adhering to relevant city ordinances.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? My Board Member Miranda.
I was just going to say this, and here again, years ago, I believe some council way back 25, 30 years ago, had an ordinance that any building that was built in the city of Tampa, such a amount of money had to give 1%, I think it was 1% for art. Is that still in effect?
It's a state law.
Right. Well, does that apply?
Up to $200,000.
Yeah. Well, if that's the city's policy,
It's a state policy.
state policy, but it's
It's
within the
actually
city.
codified in the city code too.
But does that mean that even if we don't pass this, they still have to do it because they're within the city?
So may I?
Board Member Cole.
So this is not advocating for a budget or anything on all it is saying that if the CRA funds something, that we need CRA approval, CAC approval of it, and we need CRA board approval of it.
Yeah.
It's all, it's
Board
just that it
Member-
would be.
Attorney Massey.
No, again, this would not apply to all public arts projects. This would just be
In the
applicable to CRA projects. I would also say instead of CAC approval,
Committee.
a CAC recommendation. The
Yeah.
CACs do
Okay.
not make any decisions.
Correct.
Okay? You all make the decisions.
Right, thank you very much.
Board Member Clendenin. You want to talk on-
Yeah, I do, because I think we already had this conversation, because when the convention center art installation piece went in. My only concern, and I think I used Charlie as an example, about the seven elected officials making decisions on art, and if, that I didn't want Charlie Miranda making a decision on art, because it would all be horses. There'd just be nothing but horses around the city of Tampa.
Horses?
It was like, so I think that we should, you hire these art experts, and sometimes maybe it's not my cup of tea, but I don't know if we should be making decisions on the art. I think the subject matter experts should be doing that.
Yeah. Well,
And this brings up a legal issue is, we need to be careful, and
Yeah.
we'll have to look at this, and I frankly can't advise you all today without thinking this through with more, but we need to be careful setting up policies that are contradictory to ordinances and procedures that the city has in place. I mean, if it's a CRA art project that does not have to go through the public art type of process and procedure, that may make sense. But if it has to go through the public art process in Chapter 4, then setting up a policy that contradicts what the ordinance is.
The motion says, in addition to adhering to relevant city ordinances.
Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. It seems very clear rather, that we have to approve any funding that the CRA wants to do, and quite frankly, I don't think any of us would approve something that we haven't seen. Like, I'm not gonna approve a theory. And for me, it's again, I have a completely different, I'm a very outsider art, folk art, very out there kind of artist. That's the kind of art I like, but it doesn't mean that I can't appreciate other type of art. And I think if I know the story behind the art, if it's just horses, I think I could appreciate horses. I think that you are selling us short on what we can appreciate and what we can see. So I
just think politicians should be.
I understand that, but I think you sell us short as people who don't have varied interests and backgrounds. I mean, we're able to see the common good in a lot of different things we do. So I think that we should trust ourselves to be able to say, this is interesting, not really my thing, but I think it's lovely. You know what I mean? So I support Councilman Carlson's motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Did he have a second?
Guido did, yes. Any further discussion? Okay, all of those in favor?
Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Any other nays? 2 nays, okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Henderson and Clendenin voted no. Okay, Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. My first motion, I want to rescind my September 12th motion for a list of projects in the pipeline because Melissa Martinez already does that. And she does a beautiful job and it's really lovely. But I moved to have Interim Director McCrae or any director post the CRA, it's called the CRA Project Tracker Report, to OnBase each month under the Director's Report in the CRA agenda, not necessarily to be talked about, but just so we can get a look at it to see where things are. I also know that it will be way ahead of time, but it will give us an idea of what's going on. It will give the public an idea of what's going on. Ms. Martinez already routinely brings this to the CAC. They expect it. It's part of their agenda. And I think it's just fabulous. So I can't wait to show it to people. But that is my motion, to rescind the September 12th and add it to the director's report in the CRA agenda and OnBase going forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any, seconded by Miranda. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then the second thing I wanted to bring forward, Mr. Massey. This is the, we received 2 weeks ago the job description for the CRA director, and you all got a copy of this 2 weeks ago, but as I've gone through it, I mean, there's just drastic changes that need to be made to this. The first is basically that they consider this a city employee or serving at the pleasure of the mayor and the board, and that is just simply not the case, including a lot of things, a lot of work being done for the city. So I really, really want us to take a solid look at this and bring back changes. This just for the fact that this was actually not done for Miss Moody. It was done for the person that we tried to hire. And gosh, things are different now. And Miss Moody did a wonderful job of bringing stuff together, really changing the direction of this. And so I just want to reiterate. And so I would like to ask that the CRA board bring back their suggestions for this. I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Massey and ask for those, any edits you want to be made to this to be brought forward on right after Labor Day, so that we can really go forward and have a full.
Just again, because you all are a sunshine board, you can't communicate with one another outside of a meeting.
Yes,
So,
but Mr. This is going to be similar to the way Mr. Clendenin did the thing for the budget analyst, where his legislative aide, Mr. Heberlein, took those suggestions and put them together.
So we can send it to Darlene, you're saying?
If Darlene wants to do that, that would be great. Board Member Carlson has also offered to do that. So, Mr. Carlson.
But if Darlene will do it, that's great.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
And I think it would be helpful if Darlene would then communicate with HR so that HR had those comments in advance.
Yeah,
of the
Darlene and I
12th.
can tackle that.
Yeah.
That'll be
Awesome. Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I went through and underline something in almost every sentence, but just some broad brush things. The very first line says, work of unusual difficulty. And the reason why the position is difficult and the reason why people are scared to take it is because they perceive a conflict between the administration and the CRA board. We can resolve those conflicts in the services agreement by being clearer and also by better describing this. This has a lot of errors in it in the way it's written. In the second sentence, it talks about includes a wide range of redevelopment and economic development activities. If you go back to our strategic plan that we wrote, we were very careful about choosing the words, and nothing that was from our strategic plan is in here. In fact, the strategic plan should be copied in this. The first line of the second paragraph says, support the board's mission to provide customer satisfaction while achieving a high level of productivity, efficiency, and safety. That's not our mission.
Yeah.
That's not the mission statement that we wrote. And it just goes on and on and on. On the second page, it says city, 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 and probably that was cut and paste from something else, but it needs to say CRA, because it needs to be clear. And a copy of the services agreement should be attached too, so that they know clearly what they can do and can't do. The other thing is that in the original service agreement that I looked at 5 years ago and I helped rewrite it, it was all the things that the city was supposed to do were all related to real estate development, and we know that what Erica was focused on was the C instead of the R. Yeah. Not everything in CRA is about real estate. But if you look at this job description, it's all about real estate. It's using the old model from 5-6 years ago, not the new model that's in the service agreement.
So yes, thank you so much for taking that on, because I think this is just such an important thing, and it really allows us to put our new stamp using all of the stuff that we've worked so hard, and Ms. Moody worked so hard, and that the CRA team has worked so hard to put in process. And I'm really excited because I think we'll be able to get some better quality candidates if we share the excitement and the passion and what we're really focusing on. And so I'm just excited about it, and I just wanted to bring it back to your attention. So my motion is that folks bring their edits to Ms. Johnson send their edits to Ms. Johnson by the day after Labor Day.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Maniscalco, the quiet one. Okay, one more? You're done?
Yes,
Board
thank
Member?
you so much.
Board Member Clendenin.
Just an update reference the issue with the streetcar. One, when you know it takes almost a year to build a fence around a cemetery, it's just mind-boggling how slow things go. The streetcar, same thing. It's been quite some time since the CRA had allocated $5 million to begin the process of the study. Well, the good news is next week the RFP will go out to update the study. They'll have access to those funds. We're also looking at Federal Transportation Agency funds, so to be able to fund the same thing, and so things are clicking along well. I know Morris has been in a lot of discussions about expanding the service district. I don't know where that is, Morris. Do you?
I've not had any recent conversations, but I will check with Mr. Beatty about whether, the major thing that will have to happen with that is that the consultant will have to be engaged, because the study will have to be updated, and we'll have to set forth the justification for assessing additional property.
So I think that's the next step, is to ensure that as we move with the construction of the actual, putting out the RFP for the project itself, but it's integral to get that done, because that also federal funding and everything else is dependent upon how we support the streetcar after it's constructed.
Correct. The special assessment is largely about covering the operation costs of the system, and so that is something that I know that Revenue Finance and Mobility are looking at. Whether right now only businesses are assessed within the current geographic area, so there's, I think, a conversation whether that needs to be expanded, and then the district, and then also the makeup of the streetcar board, if we dramatically changed, who has to pay into it. So.
Well, I appreciate it. You're going to stick around for that, right?
No problem.
I don't know anymore. People come and go quickly around here. It's like Oz.
Okay. Board Member Maniscalco.
I want to thank Councilmember Clendenin for his leadership on the streetcar. It's a very important, it's a historical and transformational issue, so I know you've been on top of it. And I want to say hello to Mrs. Martha Vila, who's in the audience today.
Hello.
She is here. Thank you for being here. But that's it.
Okay, Board Member Vieira.
Yes.
Ms. Vila, good morning.
I came to surprise you. I watch you all. Every week on my television, you look the same. It's such an honor for me to be here. I've been here for many, many years. And most of the time, you all ask my age. Last year, I made a promise to you that if the park was finished, we would together celebrate it at the park, my 90th birthday. Saturday, I will be 91.
Happy birthday.
What a blessing.
So it's an honor to thank you. I'm proud to be a citizen of Tampa. I'm proud to be an American. And I'm proud of all that defended this country. I've ordered some little snacks, but they haven't been delivered. But all I wanted to do was thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you have done. I'm proud to be an American.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vila. That's so sweet of you.
If I'd known you were here today, I would have worn my tie that you gave me. I
know.
love that tie.
You
Thank
got to
you.
wear it though.
I do. It's a beautiful tie. Thank you.
I have a scarf.
Well, happy
You all have the
birthday
same.
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Martha. Happy birthday to you and many more.
Thank you. God bless you all.
Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. And it's funny, speaking of Miss Vila, who's here, I wanted to give a shout out to our the county commission on an important veteran issue that I know Miss Vila would care a lot about. Yesterday, we had on the agenda today, it was received and filed, but the issue on the World War I African-American soldiers memorial. Yesterday at County Commission, Commissioner Josh Bosel made a motion to appropriate up to $10,000 for the restoration of that marker. The genesis of that was that we had a community cleanup of Memorial Park Cemetery that's home to a lot of our veterans, mostly African-American veterans. About a year and a half ago, when Commissioner Wosel and I spent about 2 hours together, and we became friends out there cleaning a cemetery. And I proposed to him at the time that the county and the city work together, and we're doing that on this marker, on this memorial marker that's gosh, 100, just marked 100 years. And you know, Commissioner Wosel himself is a Navy veteran, and so it's something that's obviously in his heart. And I believe in the city working with the county, and I also believe, I'll say it, and I happen to be a registered Democrat, he's a registered Republican. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we agree on veterans, and even though we're very friendly. So I did want to give a shout out to the Hillsborough County yesterday for doing that. You know, that memorial marker is something that's very important. There's World War I soldiers who are African American who rest there eternally at Memorial Park Cemetery. And for a lot of folks who don't know, a lot of those returning, those veterans who are African American who return home from World War I, they demanded their rights. And that's when you saw a massive uptick in racial violence, in lynching incidents, et cetera, after World War I. So that particular marker is something that's very, very important. So again, I did want to give a shout out to the Hillsborough County, to Commissioner Wosel, to our wonderful CRA staff, to the Cemetery Society folks who are working with us on this. This is going to be a win for historical preservation, a win for history, and a win for this cemetery that has certainly seen its share of controversy. And Mr. McCray, thank you again, sir, for all your work on that. So again, I just wanted to give a public shout out to the county and to Commissioner Wosel. Thank you very much.
Okay. Board Member Miranda.
I just want to follow up by saying what Councilmember Vieira said, not only one commissioner, but I guess we better ask the other ones that are going to vote for it to say thank you too.
Yep. Motion to receive and file.
Before you do that,
No,
a couple of things real quick.
Yes, Board
Mr.
Member
McCray had
Attorney.
approached me. Just want to check with the clerk. Did we approve item number 8, the downtown program reallocation?
We
of the
did.
streetcar? Okay.
We did do that.
Okay.
We've had the approval.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
The other thing that Mr. McCray wanted me to mention, and we, if you could get a motion from the chair, from a member of the board, and again, this is subject to, frankly, my review, and we have a lot going on in September, but if I can get my review done of both the update of the community redevelopment plan for Central Park and for Tampa Heights Riverfront, we'd like to have those, a motion to schedule for a presentation of the update of those
Okay.
plans.
All those in favor? Did you get the second from, it was Vieira, it was louder.
If I may,
Yes.
I want to object to form that John Bennett walked in here without a jacket on. You've weirded, I've never seen you. I know, I'm joking, man. It's good to see you, sir.
Came to love on Ms. Vila. Okay. Yes. And it passed. All those in favor? Okay, now it's my turn. I just want to say thank you to my fellow board members and city council members. I wasn't feeling well last week. I greatly appreciate your flowers, your small gifts of appreciation, thinking about me at that time. So I really appreciate that, and I want to say it publicly just to show proof that we actually do get along. Okay, and can I have a motion to receive and file? Okay, boom. All those in favor?